What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my Week 11 top 34 running back rankings. If you enjoy the video, do me a huge favor, hit that like button and subscribe. But let's just dive right into Tier 1. These are your studs. They're going to be locks in your lineup. I've got Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Josh Jacobs. Do want to give a shout out to Devon Achane. Despite kind of being in an uncertain offensive situation, Dolphins have kind of looked like a dumpster fire this year. Devon Achane just continues to produce. The dude's an absolute stud. Went out in Week 10, 22 carries for 174 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also added 6 receptions for 61 yards through the air. So Achane's an absolute baller. Also is a decent matchup this week. Like the Dolphins actually projected to put up points, 24.5 implied point total. So Devon Achane, fire him up as a high-end running back one. Bijan Robinson, obviously kind of a frustrating day with Tyler Algier, still a high-end running back one. Jahmyr Gibbs has just been super boomer bust in his last 4 weeks. He's had 2 games under 8 PPR points, and he's had 2 games over 36 PPR points. Obviously still going to be a lock. And then Josh Jacobs. This Packers offense is just kind of gross, but they keep feeding Josh Jacobs. The Giants are allowing the 3rd most fantasy points per game to the running back position, and then Jacobs has scored at least 1 touchdown in 8 of his 9 games this season. Now, moving into Tier 2, this might seem high, but I'm rolling with Jaylen Warren. Running backs going up against the Bengals have just been an absolute cheat code for fantasy. The Bengals are allowing the most fantasy points per game to the running back position, and it's not by a small margin. It's by like 6.5 PPR points per game. Jaylen Warren hasn't been amazing as of late, but the usage has been there. He took 16 of the 21 running back opportunities in Week 10. He actually had a pretty efficient day. It was just like a brutal offensive performance from the Steelers. So I think this is a great opportunity for Jaylen Warren this week. Then I've got James Cook going up against the Buccaneers. Bucks allowing the 9th most points per game to the running back position. Bills have the highest implied point total. They're 5.5 point favorites. Definitely a potential favorable game script for Cook. Then I've got Chase Brown going up against the Steelers, and I do want to make it clear, this is assuming that Samaje Perine misses this game. I think there's a pretty wide range of outcomes in terms of like Chase Brown's usage with and without Samaje. If Perine is back in the lineup, I think it's very possible we're looking at like a 60-40, 65-35 split. That would be pretty gross for Chase Brown. However, we saw in, I think it was Week 8, when Samaje Perine went down, all of a sudden Chase Brown is an absolute workhorse. No, that would have been Week 9. He took 24 of the 26 opportunities in that Week 9 game. I believe he had like 13 targets, something insane like that. So if Perine's out, Chase Brown is definitely a very strong running back one. My RB9 is going to be Javonte Williams going up against the Raiders. Javonte is the running back 8 in points per game. The Cowboys have the 4th highest implied point total, and they're 3-point favorites. So like Javonte as like a back-end RB1. After Javonte, going to go with Rico Dowdle going up against the Falcons. And I guess like this was the Rico coming down to earth game, only 15.3 PPR points. Still obviously a really strong play in your lineup, but he had gone for at least 28 in his first 3 starts. This is just not a great offense around him. Like Bryce Young, unfortunately, just does not look like he's the guy, but they're still force-feeding Rico, and he has still been a stud, top 10 running back for me this week. Then I've got Ashton Genty going up against the Cowboys. Cowboys allowing the 2nd most points per game to the running back position. Genty's usage has been really strong in back-to-back weeks, 18 and 24 opportunities. The Raiders just need to not get blown out. Like, that's the big issue. In Genty's down games, it's because they've just been losing by so much. They're, like, not giving them the ball anymore. I think they can put up, like, a respectable offensive performance here against this brutal Cowboys defense. And then the last guy in this tier, Kyren Williams, just super steady, really nice Week 10, 14 carries for 73 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions for 11 yards. Not a great matchup here against the Seahawks, but I just think this Rams offense is going to be pretty solid against pretty much anyone. Now moving into Tier 3, pretty small tier here. Going to start off with Travion Henderson. And shout out to Henderson, man. This was my guy coming into the season. Loved him in Dynasty rookie drafts. It had been rough, right, through the first, 9 weeks of the season. But he goes out Week 10, 14 carries for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. He has 2 long breakaway touchdown runs. His usage, even in the receiving game, was actually pretty strong, like a 69% route participation. he just wasn't getting the checkdowns from Drake May. So, like, that's somewhat unfortunate, but it's good that he's at least out there. They're trusting him in those opportunities. Now, this is obviously assuming that Ramondre is not back. Don't believe he practiced at all last week. So, maybe they also played a little bit more safe with him, knowing they have Travion Henderson, who, just had a monster game in week 10. Could definitely be a favorable game script against the Jets. If Ramondre is back, then obviously Henderson is going to be a lot lower than this, but RB1 Travion Henderson, he is going to be a high-end running back 2 for me. And then I've got 2 of like these veteran running backs, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, both just draw really tough matchups. Lions and the Browns are bottom 3 in points per game allowed to the running back position. Saquon, he just hasn't had those ceiling games. Like last year, he averaged over 20 PPR points per game. He has had one game with 20 PPR points. And then Derrick Henry, his usage has been really strong, 19 plus carries in his last 4 games. It's just the touchdowns that haven't really been there. And if he's not getting into the end zone, he's not giving you that elite production. Now moving into tier 4, starting it off with Breece Hall going up against the Patriots. This is not a great matchup. Patriots bottom 4 in points per game allowed to the running back position, but his usage has been solid, 21 and 22 opportunities in his last 2 games. This Jets offense is just going to be super run heavy, especially with Garrett Wilson now missing at least a few weeks. Like the wide receiver room, the overall targets are just pretty awful on this team, and your quarterback is Justin Fields, also not great. So Breece Hall is going to get a lot of opportunities. I guess my one like nitpick, and I know he did have the big receiving play in week 10, let's get this dude involved as a pass catcher. Like he is a weapon out of the backfield. So hopefully we see an uptick in his receiving usage, but still like a fine mid-tier RB2. Then I've got RJ Harvey going up against the Chiefs. Obviously this is assuming that J.K. Dobbins is not going to play this week. And this does feel sketchy. Like, it's not a good matchup against the Chiefs. They're allowing the 7th fewest points per game to the running back position. And RJ Harvey's usage has kind of been all over the place. If we flash forward like a week from now, I wouldn't be shocked, like looking at a box score with Jaleel McLaughlin, who's been like a healthy scratch, all of a sudden leading the backfield in carries. Like Sean Payton, at least with the running backs, it just seems like he's trying to like almost outsmart himself. So it does feel sketchy, but like with Dobbins out of the picture, Harvey's been efficient. He's had this big play upside. He's been able to get into the end zone. And so you just think if you give this dude like 10 to 15 opportunities, good things are going to happen. That would be my bet here against the Chiefs. And I've got Travis Etienne going up against the Chargers. Really strong usage in back-to-back games, 27 and 20 opportunities. That was a pretty embarrassing collapse from the Jaguars in week 10. Just pretty brutal, but Etienne's been fine, mid-tier RB2. In that same matchup, Kamani Vidal, obviously going up against the Jaguars, he's had like 3 full games as the clear-cut starter. He's had 2 really strong performances, 19.7, 17.8 PPR points, and then he had the one really rough game down at 3. I think he's probably more on the higher end of that. I'm not going to be projecting like 17, 19 plus points, but some really strong games coming in here as the replacement. And then moving into tier 5, this is where we're starting to get a little bit sketchy. I'll start it off with Kareem Hunt going up against the Broncos. This is definitely assuming that Isaiah Pacheco does not play. And if Pacheco's out, like Kareem Hunt does look like the clear running back 1. Week 9, 11 carries for 49 yards and a touchdown, also with 2 targets. The thing with Kareem Hunt is you're really just like playing the goal line back for the Chiefs, where like he's probably not going to be super efficient. The workload might not be massive, but you're just hoping he can at least score 1 touchdown. Then I've got DeAndre Swift going up against the Vikings. There was a lot of talk about what the split was going to look like between him and Kyle Monangai. He ends up going out there, 20 of the 28 running back opportunities. Now, I do think some of that was like game script dependent. Him and Monangai split the goal line snaps. Swift took 11 of the 14 2-minute drill snaps. And, there was a decent amount of those because they were trailing in this game. It's not a great matchup against the Vikings. Like the Bears are down at 21.5 implied points. And if you do have someone kind of splitting with you, that is not ideal. After Swift, I've got Woody Marks going up against the Titans. Really dominated the usage in week 10, 17 of the 23 running back opportunities. Kind of similar to Swift. I think a lot of that was game script, right? It was like a trailing game script pretty much the entire way. But this is a great matchup here against the Titans. The Titans are allowing the 5th most points per game to the running back position. The Texans are 7.5-point favorites. So I actually think Marks and Nick Chubb could be somewhat relevant going into this matchup. And then someone who might seem low, I've got Quinshon Judkins. We saw in week 10, he had 25 opportunities, really strong workload. The issue is just in this matchup against the Ravens, game script wise, I think it's going to be rough for Judkins, where he's really only getting like the early downs, the short yardage snaps, and they're 8.5-point dogs in this matchup. And so I could see 12 carries for like 50 yards, and then you're just like praying he gets into the end zone. I just don't know if this is the best spot for Quinshon Judkins. At running back 24, I've got Trey Benson. No guarantee he plays this week. Just like I said last week, this is kind of just an excuse for me to not have to rank Bam Knight and Amari DiMercato. So Trey Benson, I hope he's back. It'd be a lot easier to navigate this Cardinals backfield. Three more guys in this tier. Aaron Jones going up against the Bears. Week 10 saw 14 of the 19 running back opportunities, was efficient, 9 for 47 and a touchdown, 5 targets, 3 for 22. He's just looked like, the far better option over Jordan Mason since coming back from injury. Then I've got David Montgomery going up against the Eagles. He's just been fine, like 11.7 PPR points per game. They are 1.5-point dogs in this matchup, which I don't think is great for him, like game script wise. And then the final guy in this tier is going to be Rachaad White going up against the Bills. This might seem low for Rachaad White. The idea is like with Bucky Irving out, Rachaad White is just like this locked in workhorse. That just hasn't really been the case. Like Sean Tucker's come in, he's gotten his opportunities. He's pretty much like outproduced, been more efficient than Rachaad White. But as of right now, at least with what we saw in week 10, Rachaad White is still getting all the valuable opportunities. So he took 100% of the goal line, third down, and 2-minute snaps. Until that changes, like Rachaad White is still the clear option. But like if they start to split those up, especially on the goal line, like Sean Tucker could end up being the more valuable option. Now moving into the sixth and final tier, this is kind of like gross committee range. I'll start it off with Zach Charbonnet. He's averaging 11.8 carries, 1 target per game. He's got the goal line role. It is just a tough matchup. Rams, fewest points per game allowed to the running back position. I don't even have Kenneth Walker in the rankings. Like, it's just brutal. It's such a close split between the two, and then Walker just doesn't have the touchdown upside. So tough to play Walker. Then I've got Nick Chubb. Like I said, a really strong matchup against the Titans. Also potentially a favorable game script for Nick Chubb, who could be more of like that, you're leading. You want him to be like the grinder, potentially the closer in this matchup. Then I've got Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and it does feel gross having him this high. He's been pretty brutal. Like, he's had at least 9 carries in his last 6 games, but he hasn't had a game over 4 yards per carry in his last 4. It is a good matchup on paper. The Dolphins are 8th in points per game allowed. A big issue for Bill Krosky-Merritt has been like the game scripts, right? Like, he's someone who should thrive in leading game scripts where he can rack up volume on the ground, get into the end zone. They haven't been in a lot of those, but they're only 1.5-point dogs here against the Dolphins. And then Chris Rodriguez, who kind of had an increased role last week, he was also banged up, left that game early. So this is where I have Bill. It certainly doesn't feel great, but I've got him ahead of like 2 committee backfields on just like gross offenses. So that's where I've kind of settled. One of those gross committees, the Titans, I've got Tajay Spears, Tony Pollard back-to-back. The Titans are all the way down at 15.5 implied points. That is the lowest of any team this week. Spears in the last 4 games, averaging 10 opportunities, 3.5 targets. So the usage has been fine, has some receiving upside. Pollard in that same stretch, 12.3 opportunities, but only 8.2 PPR points per game. And then the last kind of committee group here, Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Devin Singletary. This has been a pretty competitive split. Tyrone Tracy getting more of like the 2-minute drill snaps, running more routes. Devin Singletary getting the goal line work. You've got the Jackson Dart concussion. It's not a good matchup. The Giants have the 4th lowest implied point total. The Packers are bottom 6 in points per game allowed to the running back position. So both of those guys are pretty gross plays. But once we're getting to like the back end RB3s, the options are just not going to be great. So that is going to wrap it up for my top 34 running back rankings this week. If you enjoyed, hit the like button, subscribe. Stay tuned for the wide receiver rankings. Those will be coming out today also. But thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.